Welcome to the Remodeler Success Podcast, a show created to inspire kitchen and bath industry professionals to achieve optimal success in their remodeling business. Your host, Dennis Oz, is the author of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. He's also the founder of RTA Marketing, a pioneer digital marketing agency for the remodeling industry. On each episode, Dennis will sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they learned, and how to find success in remodeling.
Welcome back to the Remodeler Success Podcast, where we sit down with the leaders shaping the future home remodeling, residential remodeling, and design. Today's guest took a small family surplus store in Georgia and turned it to one of the fastest growing design franchises in the country. So he's built a national brand and scaled operations across multiple locations and brings a real rare combination of design instinct and also business acumen, also franchise building experience. So that's why I'm so excited for this specific episode. Also, beyond the remodeling space, he also owns several other businesses, including a top-rated restaurant. And also, our speaker today is really active in real estate and also leadership circles. Please welcome to the show, Casey Ridley. Casey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dennis, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. Casey, let's talk a little bit of yourself and your background. And also, I would like to talk about the franchise too. Let's start with the soft stuff. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. Well, like you said, my name's Casey Ridley. I am the founder and president of a company called The Designery, a kitchen, bath, and closet franchise concept across the country. And I'm excited to be here and tell you a little bit about that, my journey, and how I got to where I'm at today.
Great. Thanks so much. So, yes, just like we said in the introduction, you turned a family surplus business into the Designery and then turn into a franchise brand that takes this operation, that transformation takes timing and vision and also bold decisions. What made you go for it?
Yeah. Well, first off, I've always had the entrepreneur mindset. I think that's a very important kind of key aspect of any entrepreneur is that you have this mindset of just wanting to take this leap of faith. And now it's just about what do you take it on and where does that go? And so when I graduated school and I was trying to figure out kind of what's next for me in my journey, and my family at the time was ready to retire, and so I approached them about potentially buying the business. And I recognized at that time that the business had the right foundation to where I think I could have taken it somewhere bigger. It had, decent people, it had some decent vendors. And so it just had some, building blocks. And so I said, okay, that could be the start of something great. And from there, we started expanding and looking at what, how do we expand and what that looks like across the country. So I can dig a little deeper into that if you want, Dennis, or I can stop there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll go a little more deep in there with the questions and everything because I have a big list of questions, Casey. I homework really well before coming here. So, Casey, the growth always comes with lessons. And in this show, we really love to talk about these lessons. And these hardest ones, they usually stick. And just want to hear what's something you had to learn the hard way while building this business?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I could give you a very long list and we could be here for hours if I'm talking about all the hard lessons that I've had to learn
Feel
across the
free.
way.
Feel free.
One thing is, so first off, let me kind of hit on, the questions I had to ask myself whenever I decided, I wanted to franchise this brand and I wanted to go further with it. I had to ask myself, one, is this business big enough? Meaning, can someone feed their family? Could it create generational wealth? Can it be taught to others? Is this something that someone can learn? Can it be replicated in every city? And I had to get the business to the point where the answer was yes for all of those questions before I could take it to the next level. So that meant, fine tuning the business model. That meant changing the name and rebranding to what is now the Designery. All of those things had to be kind of figured out. And throughout that journey, one thing that I really learned as I started scaling, and probably one of the hardest lessons, is just how important cash is, right? I'm sure you've heard the saying that cash is king. And that is so true. You look at a lot of different businesses and they, accrual accounting is very important and there's a place for that. And All of our CPAs love that kind of accounting. But in reality, cash flow is what is most important for the business. So when you start expanding and you start growing and you start figuring that stuff out, I had some tough lessons around that of, what the P&L shows is great, but what's in the bank account is really what matters. So what are the terms? What are with vendors? What are customer payments? What is all of those things that creates a good cash flow for the business? And then from there, all of those questions started becoming yeses to where I could then grow it and expand it. So I would say that was a really tough lesson that I had to learn.
That's amazing. And I'm sure there are some also maybe sometimes more challenges in addition to the cash flow, I would say. Not the problem, but it's always like a concern. Definitely, it's always a concern. Let's talk about a little bit of those business insights that comes from these tough situations. Could be a failure, right? Could be a friction or could be a pressure. Is there any moment that really shaped how you lead today?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I think when I started out in business and, when I first was running this business from the very beginning, I was much more transactional in some of my thinking from a business standpoint. Trying to make money. Does it do the right things to make money? Does it not? Right. And just trying to make the best business decisions. But what I learned along the way from some tough situations is that relationships are really one of the most important things in business. And you can't always be transactional and you can't always be kind of more, what I would call business minded. You can't be that every single time. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have confrontation. Confrontation is going to come with emotion. Things are not always going to, go well for both parties, no matter what kind of business it is. No matter who you're talking to, maybe it's a customer, maybe it's a vendor, maybe it's a colleague, whatever it may be. And so having the relationship as kind of a key factor in your mindset that you build from day one with every single person you talk to, that really allows you to shape the kind of business that you want to build. And then the other stuff kind of comes with it. Like there's still a place for being business minded and transactional, obviously in business, but from a leadership perspective, the relationship is probably the number one thing, right? People stay with a company because of relationships. They leave companies because of a lack of relationship. Customers will stay with the business because you're more expensive or because, maybe you made a mistake on something. Like they will still support you and give you that 5-star review or whatever it may be if the relationship is strong and sound. So that was probably one of the, definitely biggest things I think I had to learn when I first started is that everything doesn't have to be based on what a P&L maybe shows. Now that's important. Don't get me wrong. Cash is king, like I mentioned, but I do think relationships is just a really important factor here in business.
Can we say your network is your net worth?
That's so true. I love that quote. I think it's a very true quote. Um, I think people often don't spend enough time really building that network and that relationship because you just never know what benefit they can provide to you, but then also what you can provide to them because it is a synergistic relationship. But again, just like you said, your network is your net worth, and relationships are super important in that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And thanks so much for dropping this knowledge and sharing with our audience today. This is amazing. So, just wanted to talk a little more about creating a team and managing the team. Most of the companies that also Designery just really kind of talks to, and also could be a remodeler, residential remodeler, could be a design and build firm, or could be a kitchen and bath design store. We always, it's just like business owners, we always hit a wall when you're trying to grow, especially when moving from one crew to something bigger, when you're building your team. What mistakes do you see most often?
You know, I would say one of the biggest mistakes that I see is really discounting the people piece to the equation. So, just people, people, people. It is so important. And I already hit on relationships. I won't kind of, necessarily go too much into that. But I think when you start expanding, needless to say, you start getting really, really, really busy. Your time gets harder and harder to manage. And often one of the things that I think business owners will put kind of to the side and they won't prioritize it and really talking with their people, their staff, and everyone that's just kind of running that business on a frontline basis. Are they happy? Are they well compensated? Do they believe in the company? Do they believe in the leadership? Do they believe in me? Do they believe in something greater than just dollars? And what is that? I think that people or business owners often forget that people piece. And I think that that is just something, a mistake that people make. It creates high turnover, it creates a lack of consistency, and it just creates inability to really grow effectively and, of course, efficiently. So, people, I can't stress that enough, and just how important it is. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for some really, really key people across my organizations, that they're way better than I could ever be. And when you find people that are smarter than you and better than you and can do everything better than you can, then you better not let them go. And you've got to make sure you're talking to them, and you've got to understand why they're with you. And if they were to leave, why? So you can improve and move better moving forward in the future. So I would say that's a really common mistake.
Yeah, I really love when you say that. I mean, we have to hire people that is smarter than us. And I believe it doesn't really kind of destroy our ego if these people in their own positions and seats, they deliver a stellar service, maybe better than us, right? Because, you're not the expert. I always say this one, you are the CEO of a big airline, but you don't know how to fly a plane. Maybe that would be the case in your, just like you're trying to with your point.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, Dennis. I mean, customers do not want me to come out and install cabinets in their home. That is not my place. That's for sure. And I think that people that are in leadership positions, they often struggle to look themselves in the mirror and have that honest conversation around what are my weaknesses? What am I not good at? What should I stay away from in the business? And that really gives you key insights as to what kind of people you should hire. So, for example, if I look at myself and I'm like, you know what? I'm just really not a super financially savvy person. Well, I might need to hire a really good CFO or a really good controller or whatever it may be. If I'm not great at sales, I need to hire one of the best salespeople I can find to handle those things. If I'm not good at the installation side or the product knowledge side, you've got to hire people to satisfy those weaknesses. And I think it's easy for leadership oftentimes to hire people like themselves because that's who you typically seem to jive with. It's who you like in an initial interview. It's who you just see yourself getting, the best feedback from. Maybe they float your ego a little bit. It makes you feel good. So now you like them more. But in reality, those are all red flags to stay away from because you've got to find people who are just totally different from you. When I interview someone and they bring a diverse and unique perspective that I never would have thought of, that's when I'm putting little check marks on my piece of paper and I'm noting like how great that interview was because I want people different than me. And that's what builds a great organization.
Well, yeah, this is a very important thing to know, and thanks so much for sharing this. And also, a big part of it. Well, let's talk about the design leader for a little while. Well, when you have the franchisees and the franchisor, I'm sure that you're giving people a room, right? They are
Mhm.
maybe they're the professional, they're running from one job site to another, and then you give them a roof. They have like a physical office space or like a design showroom or something like this. And moving from job sites to a showroom is a really big leap, and it's not
Mhm.
really easy. And it also changes how you sell and how you operate. So what do you think? What's the smartest first step for someone making that transition? Maybe they will be thinking about like getting a franchise, right? Maybe they're just thinking like opening a showroom somewhere. What would be the smartest first step for these people?
Well, I think when you are going from, a single location to multiple locations, or you're going from working out of a truck to trying to build out a showroom and you're trying to take it to the next level, I think one of the hardest things when you're at that level of business, and I was there, like I certainly get it, is it's easy to work in the business, right? It's easy to work in the day to day. It's easy to, just take tasks and take work off of team, or maybe you don't want to hire certain people because you don't want to increase your payroll. I get those things, but you have to start working on the business rather than in the business. So working on, your marketing, is it working for you? Do I have the right processes? Do I have the right training protocols for new staff members or new team members? I can't be in every single place at one time. So when I can look at a situation and say, what would happen if I wasn't here? If I wasn't here making this call, and if the answer is I don't know, or the answer is something I don't like, because I'm not there, then I have to build something around that, which is why you're working on the business. rather than just being in it and making that decision. So I would say my biggest advice is really a mindset shift, right? When a entrepreneur says, I really want to take this to the next level and, whatever it is, maybe they're at 500,000 and they want to go to a million, maybe they're a million, they want to go to 5 million and they want to take it to the next level, is they have to shift that mindset from giving themselves a job to leading the business and working on the important items that will really change the trajectory of the business. So mindset shift would be the biggest advice I would give.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you. And I'm sure that everybody just tuned in today. I'm sure they're getting a really big value out of this conversation. And thanks so much. Casey, we have a lot more questions. Come on. I'm not going to let you go, but you continue. Well,
Can't make it easy on me, Dennis.
just because, Casey, you have also different business lines, like could be a restaurant and also real estate. Just wanted to talk more about like bringing back the conversation to the hiring a little more, not like just the hiring managing team, but for now, just the hiring the actual person, right people in the right seats, and hiring and keeping these great people, these A players are not really easy, and especially in retail environments that you have like really big experience, right?
Mm.
What's worked best for you when you're building your in-store teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, speaking just on the hiring stage, I think that we all have this corporate mindset of structured questions with answers that we want to hear in order to check a box for someone to move on to the next stage or be hired. And when I conduct interviews and I meet people for the first time, I very loosely have a couple of topics, really, less so questions, but those are centered around just really getting to know that person. It's not just about the business and where they see themselves, because they're going to tell you whatever they think they need to tell you in those questions to get hired. And that's just not going to allow you to figure out, one, is this the right person for the company? But then two, is the seat I'm looking for to fill, is that the right person for that seat? Like you said, so the right people in the right seats. And so the questions are very open ended and it's very conversational. And I think we need to get out of that rigid thinking of these are the answers that I want to hear and more about who are these people at their heart, what drives them, right? For example, if I'm hiring a salesperson and this person is talking and I'm understanding that what drives them is a pretty design, they probably aren't going to be the best salespeople, right? But on the other hand, if I'm learning that this person is really driven because maybe they have a newborn baby at home and they've got a brand new family, and that's driving them because they want to be in a better financial position for their family, then they're probably going to be really good salespeople because they really want to drive, income for their family. And that's going to then provide more value to the company at the end of the day. So getting more into that kind of conversational topic is, I think, really important from a hiring perspective. Um, and then that goes across just every type of, business, every type of seat, every type of role that you're looking for, is really just talking to them and then, making notes about who they are as people and then understanding what kind of person that you need to fill that role. So, if I'm looking for a designer, if I'm looking for a salesperson, if I'm looking for a cook at a restaurant, if I'm looking for a property manager, whatever it may be that I'm looking for, there's different attributes that I'm going to kind of attribute to that, and that's really where I'm going to dig deep into and try to understand and find, rather than just expecting a, point blank question about what their greatest strength is.
Wow. Well, I think all our listeners here today, they do understand the systematic approach, not only for your operations, but also hiring has the same thing, just like Casey explained here. I believe all our listeners here, or maybe you're watching, finding it valuable as much as I find it valuable. So thanks so much for sharing all these wisdom with us, Casey. So, yes, talking about systematic approach and systems, I'm sure there are some more software systems that you use, you find it really critical when you're growing fast, right? Could be the projects or communication is a part of it, right? What tools have been really game changers for you?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier about what decision would be made or what would happen in this situation if I wasn't here to do it or answer it, right? Whatever that thing may be, rather that's pricing, rather that's handling a customer question, rather it's getting a, bad review, whatever it may be. And so because of that, I had to build, buy, develop, whatever, special softwares that could run the entire business and make it seamless. They have to integrate together in today's world. They have to communicate. You have to make sure that your softwares are not working in silos because that creates, issues with your data. That creates issues with your customer experience and your customer service, which I haven't gone into much, but that is one of the most important parts from a customer perspective that you're building with your company is that customer experience. But that all goes into the software, right? If you have bad software that's clunky and doesn't work together well, and the pricing isn't automatic, then it just leaves room for errors. It leaves rooms for bad experiences for the customer and the employees, and the installers or whoever it may be. So, a good POS system, a good software, for us to design software that communicates together well is important. And then the last piece of that is what we call data lakes. So just having a good ability to understand your data and understand your numbers. You can't always make decisions within your business, or most of the time you can't, if you don't have good numbers at your disposal to understand what is your cost of acquisition, what is your lifetime value of a customer, whatever those KPIs are that you deem most important for your business. You have to be able to understand them and look at them and see what they are at any given point. And most, especially small business owners, if you ask them what their lifetime value of a customer is, they would have absolutely no idea what that means, right? Or maybe not what it means, but they would have no idea what their number is for their business. And that's where the problem comes in, is that you make decisions on marketing, on, Christmas gifts for, certain key, customers of yours or whatever it may be, right? However you want to give back to your customers or your community. You're not able to make those kinds of decisions without just understanding the numbers. So being able to take that POS system, that design software, anything else that you have within your business and bringing that into one central data lake and then extracting that to show you the KPIs that are most important for you to understand, the levers that you need to pull for your business. Those are some game changer type of platforms that we've implemented that I think change the way that we operate our business, but then also the way that the customer sees the business on their end. And that's important too.
That's amazing. Well, I'm sure that the most of our listeners today, they are looking to just to expand, and because there are opportunities, I would say the options are endless. There
Mhm.
are so many different tools here and there. And I think right now they learn how to at least look at this problem and pick their best software or solution, or, creating a system. It just starts with the first step, just like trying to understand your needs, just like you explained. And understanding your needs is the first step. And then fulfilling this need is the second step, for just like Casey explained. So, that's, I believe, his approach here just really help you to create your system. Maybe you're just doing it for your hiring, or maybe doing your for financial, or maybe just doing it for operations. I'm sure this piece of information really helpful for you to kind of strive forward. This is great.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just add one more piece there because I think you hit on a very important part, and you're so right, that there are a lot of softwares out there. And so if you just start Googling, you will get this software fatigue or a tech stack fatigue to where you will almost add too much. And that's where the silos come because they're all kind of operating separate. And then it makes it too clunky for your team to work on and have it work together very well. So I would recommend to all of the listeners out there that when you're investigating your tech stack and you're really trying to build that out to be the best for your business, which by the way is always evolving, it's always changing as you go from level 1 to 2 to 3, like it's just always changing. But as you're building that out, I would say to keep in mind the key aspects of your business. So, do you make money? Or does your business operate because of your customer experience? Does it operate because of your pricing? Does it operate because of your culture, or because of, your product, whatever it may be that like is kind of that key differentiator for you in your marketplace. Keep that in mind and build a tech stack kind of around that to highlight that rather than getting stuck in the new shiny objects and all these different sales pitches and just, all the pretty stuff that comes at you and the way it looks. Like that's great. And, there's pieces of that is valuable, but you have to keep focused on the most important part of your business. Otherwise, you'll just have way too much and customers and employees, and no one will know what's what. And you'll have the same softwares that do the same things, and it won't work out well. So I just wanted to add that one piece in there, Dennis, because I think you're right about just the quantity that's out there.
That's such an eye opener. Thank you so much, Casey. That was great to hear. Just like you said, we have to be much more selective, and just like the approach that you talk about, it's very important, folks. This is your business. And if you just have a chance to scale this business, you will have totally different life if you just like Casey explained, if you can be on the business instead of being in the business. So these tools are helping you, I believe, being on the business more than in the business. So this is a very important part, I believe, when you are just trying to build your business. All right, let's talk about a little bit of marketing. Because, well, I was just thinking before I even invite you to the show, I was just thinking, should I ask Casey questions about how a franchisor company looked at this marketing, or should I ask him how a possible franchisee may get service from the franchisor? How do they look at their marketing when they become a franchisee in the future? And I thought that the second part of the question would be better for listeners, because we have more people who get maybe franchise systems instead of, yeah, we also hosted very big franchises here, franchisors, just like Dreammaker, Bath and Kitchens. But still, I would like to learn from the franchisee standpoint, right? If someone works with a franchise company, what's your approach to their marketing when they become part of your family?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So, marketing, first off, it is different with every franchisor. Every franchisor is going to probably look at marketing slightly different. Some are going to control more, others are going to outsource more. It just kind of depends on that brand. So I do think that's a very important part that you should look into when you're investigating a franchise is what is that marketing? What does that support? And does that jive with your values and kind of what you want in a franchise systems? With that being said, for us in particular, and kind of my ideology around it is, you have to protect the brand. So that's kind of first and foremost. You have to have, consistent colors, consistent branding. It has to be, something that is repeated across every city, every country, or every town, every state in this country. So it's very important that you have that consistent branding. So that's first and foremost at the franchisor level. So we have to protect that brand and make sure that, franchise owner A doesn't hurt franchise owner B, for example. The second thing that we do is we really work kind of like consultants. So at our franchise level, we are going to make sure that we are analyzing their investments, their ROI. What is their return on that investment? What is their return on ad spend, ROAS? We are going to be analyzing all of those things so we can help consult and provide guidance as to how to improve their marketing. I think a lot of marketing firms out there, and maybe franchisors or businesses as well, they will act like marketing is a science and that they know the special marketing secret science sauce as to how to, do great marketing. But in reality, it's not. It's more of an art. It really is because every town, every city is slightly different. So, what may work in, Georgia, for example, may not work in New York, right? And they're going to be different things. And so being able to analyze your marketing, adjust, and then, re-implement, those are kind of the key things. The other aspect that we're going to handle at the franchisor level to help the franchisees is just partnerships. At our level, we're obviously able to build really strong partnerships with large vendors, with special pricing, with dedicated resources that all benefit them. And as a single unit, as again, I was at one point, it's really hard to get people to give you the time of day because you don't have the same kind of purchasing power as your people like, a McDonald's or whatever it may be, right? You can't afford to do 80 billboards across the interstate, across 4 states, right? Like you're not Bucky's. So with that being said, you have to, just kind of take what you can get and hope that the marketing works. Like that is what you do as a single unit owner. As a franchisor, bringing together this collective whole and improving our partnerships, we're able to just build a little bit of a stronger partnership there with our vendors to the franchisees, which just ultimately helps them at the end of the day, helps them understand how to talk to their key customers, how do they get in front of their key customers, and just what that looks like for them. So that's kind of the role I think that good franchisors, in my opinion, they should embody. You don't want to handle every single thing. because we are business builders, we are support systems, but we are not marketing experts at every single turn, right? We have to find the marketing experts to do that. On the other side, you can't be completely hands off because then you don't have strong branding, you don't have a strong company, and you lose that purchasing power that you can get together. So those are some of the key things that I would keep in mind for anyone out there that's building that kind of process. And then also the franchisees, or wannabe franchisees, when you're looking into franchisor, kind of what you should look for in a marketing system.
Speaking of which, folks, when cases say it's every market is different, he's really talking about the entire country. Because when you go to the designery.com, they go to location, you will see all these designer locations over there. It's just like from Texas, Pennsylvania, of course, it started in Georgia, Indiana, and Arkansas, well, just Alabama. When we say every market is different, it's really different because demographics are different. People, even the market and house market is different, and what they're looking for is different. When I was talking that's a really interesting moment that I was talking one of the prospects back in the days from California, because they were also looking for marketing services, and they just get back to us and ask a couple of questions about like how we can do. I was just saying we can also help you for basement remodeling, because in Virginia and the DMV area, like could be a DC or Maryland, basements are big for remodeling space. He said, "This is California. We don't do basement remodeling." And I thought, "Oh my God, this is a very black and white difference." And just like Casey just explained here, folks, every market is different, and every market requires its own work. Of course, the data is different there, and you have to process this data, and your output is going to be different since your input is different. So that's why I totally agree when you say, Casey, all of these markets requires a little more profound, like in detailed work. But of course, just like you said, it's just like a franchisor. You have to keep your branding strong, right? That's what it is. And I believe that's a very big advantage for a franchisee, because they don't need to think about branding because they are the franchisee. Franchise companies giving that massive
Mhm.
convenience to them. They don't need to think about it. Just wanted to ask you something kind of related. Let's say we are thinking about being a franchise, just joining the Designery family. And what would be our process from maybe day one to month one, or like maybe a year long? Could you please explain that process to us a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, a couple things when if you decide, hey, you want to join the Designery family, as an example, we're gonna start first on the real estate piece. That's obviously a very important part and a little daunting. And so, thankfully, we work with really good companies there that are going to manage that entire piece for the franchise owner, so they won't have to worry about it too much. And ultimately, it'll help them find the right location for them that hit certain demographics, that hit certain type of aesthetic, and so on. After that, you're going to start really kind of getting more into the nuts and bolts of the business. And training is going to be one of the biggest parts of that, what we call onboarding process. And that is going to be, what is your target customer? What is your product? What are our competitive advantages? How do we sell out in the marketplace? How do you build a business? How do you build a team? How do you market? Right? The list goes on. And so it's going to be very, very in depth. And you're going to have a ton of different training resources, from in person to videos to different vendor support trainings. You're gonna have a bunch of different things like that. So it's gonna be
Is
a
there a portal
very,
that is there a portal that they can go in and watch these videos, or how do you do training?
yeah, yeah, no, great question. So we do have an online portal system where you can go in. It's all proprietary. It's all our own content. So it's not, third party generated stuff or anything like that. It is our content. You're going to hear a lot of me talking in some of those videos. You're going to hear a lot of my staff members and other people within the team and the Designery family talking. But it's going to be a very strong, I mean, it's, about 60 hours worth or so of just content to that people can dive into. And that's very rough depending on how long it takes you to read. And then there's, different assignments and stuff to go through that. And then of course there's videos where people might pause it or anything like that. So lots and lots of content there. But then it goes a step further where we take it in person. And I like to say that the online management for our learning system, it takes someone who, maybe is in their own end zone. In football, for example, they're in their own end zone and they get to the 50-yard line by doing that online management system and taking it seriously. But they're not in the touchdown yet, right? They're not in the end zone yet that they need to get to. So that final 50 yards, that's where that in-person comes into play. So we're able to go a little bit deeper, a little bit more into the details, and ultimately allow those owners or their employees or their managers to be able to understand, lead, and run a Designery business effectively. So that's kind of going to be, from the very beginning, and that's going to get you to open doors, if you will. At that point, as you're open doors, now it's all about scaling and ramping your business. So how do you get customers? How do you convert customers? What is that process looking like? And how can we improve and support? Are you holding your team accountable to what they should be doing and executing on? And so they're going to now be focused more on that. So again, they're working on their business, not in their business. They're working on, holding people accountable, building a good culture, being leaders within their own local markets and their own business. So that's going to kind of go from, let's say to year one, year two, or so on. And it's just going to continue that way as they ramp their business, grow sales, grow their, their margins and their net profits and all of those things. So that's going to kind of be that journey from a very 4,000-foot view of a franchise owner for the Designery specifically.
Wow, this is an amazing journey that you designed and executed, Casey. And well, folks, I believe that you learned everything that if you are just really don't want to make the mistakes that other people made in the past, joining a big franchise family is a great option, great opportunity for you not to make the same mistakes. You'll be learning, just like Casey just said. Maybe he's the one who's just explaining things to you, and you're just learning from a pioneer in the industry. So this is why here joining a family of a big franchise is always an option for you. If you already listened here up until like we are almost 40 minutes in case, I'm sure that talking is sometimes really tiring, but thank you so much for sharing all this information with us because yes, our listeners and also audience really would like to know about like, should I go the franchise route or should I just do my own branding, create from scratch? So I believe they answer all these questions. So do you have any notes for these people in the very end? I would like to ask you, what would be the best way just to be able to get more information if they're even interested in? Is that your website or do you share your personal email or how does it work?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, relationships are so important to me. So reach out, even if you're not interested in the Designery or this business, but you're looking at franchising as a whole. Maybe you want to be a franchisor, maybe you are just a small business owner trying to take it to the next level. Reach out, let's talk. Maybe you want to be a business owner and you're stuck in your 9 to 5 corporate job and you just want to bend someone's ear. I love talking and just giving back to people where I can, because I just, again, big relationship type person. So, reach out to me on, any major social media platform, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. It's all KCCASEY, Ridley, Ridley. But then, of course, if you're interested in the Designery specifically, go to our website. It's just thedesignery.com. Very easy to find on Google. We might be in a city or a town nearby to you because, like you mentioned, Dennis, we are, certainly across the country now from east to west, north to south, and that's a really remarkable and exciting thing. And so stop into a showroom, talk to one of our owners, again, go to our website and reach out to me. If you want to email me, you can, of course, do that. It's just first dot last name at thedesigner.com. I'm super accessible and I do my best to just, get back to anyone that I can. So Dennis, I appreciate you and thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, folks. I hope that you find all this information on Casey's, all these touch points are really interesting and valuable. That was the another episode of the Remodel Success Podcast. We're going to see you next time.
If you would like to generate more leads, please visit rtamarketing.com to get a copy of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. This has been another episode of the Remodeler Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.